Hi, it's Nick Sadler from the Label Machine here. And on today's podcast, we have Harry Sotnick from dailyplaylist.com. Harry deep dived into the world of Spotify playlisting, the importance of curators in playlisting, and how and when you should start submitting your music for playlists during a release cycle. We also discussed how and when to market your own playlist as a record label, and he shared his views on how to spend $500 on marketing your next single. If you're interested in how Spotify playlisting works to further your label or artist revenues, you are going to love this episode. You're listening to the Label Machine series, a podcast to inspire and help indie record labels and artists to build income streams for their music. I'm Nick Sadler, a music entrepreneur that has helped start and run multiple indie record labels. In this series, I'll be speaking with music industry leaders about their experience and the lessons they learned on how they both market and grow their music income. Welcome to the Label Machine series, where we discuss with our guests how artists and record labels promote and monetize music. Today's guest is Harry Sotnick. Harry is an accomplished product lead currently based in Berlin, Germany. During his tenure at 5 Vectors Inc., he helped transform dailyplaylist.com into a thriving curator-centric platform, growing up from 15,000 to 40,000 monthly active users. He also spearheaded the Republic, a groundbreaking Web3 project on the Polygon blockchain. As a creative manager, he crafted audio and visual assets for gaming and music products, collaborating with renowned esports partners such as League of Legends, Fortnite, and Rocket League. With a diverse background in the music industry and freelance consulting, Harry brings a wealth of knowledge to the table, which I am looking forward to sharing with you today. Harry, how are you?
Thank you for the intro. Yeah, I'm doing really well. Summer in Berlin so far has been a lot of rain, which has currently stopped for a little bit. Maybe I see a bit of sunlight, but apart from that, all good. Thanks, mate.
Awesome. So you were born and now you're here talking to me. Tell me what happened in between.
So originally I was born in the Midlands in the UK, moved up to the northeast of England, got to mention that, hence the accent. Very big part of my personality. And then from there, I started learning to play drums when I was about 10 and instantly threw myself into playing with bands, like with my friends, which really sparked a love for music, specifically live music at the time, playing in bands and just generally, I guess, listening to all different types of genres, whatever it may be. This sort of was a constant throughout my adolescence, like my teen years, just playing music, being surrounded by musical people, which kind of translated to, again, playing in lots of different types of bands, and then eventually making the move to Brighton. From there, I was studying music business at BIM, and I was also, again, still playing in bands. At the time, one of my bands, we got picked up by some fairly reputable managers, which was really cool because I was learning about the music industry. Before that, I had a very DIY approach, but then I was working with the team and, really getting to apply what I was learning. So some really cool opportunities came out from that. We played out in Glastonbury, South Korea, Reading Leeds Festival, and really got to see some the inside of the music industry that you're getting taught about, on paper. So from there, I ended up graduating. The band kind of dissolved very naturally. And then, saw a job opportunity over here in Berlin, working for a gaming music company, 5 Vectors, who had daily playlists under their repertoire of products that they were working on. And from there, really made the jump. My other side to me, as well as being really into my punk garage rock music, first and foremost, is I'm a massive nerd, absolutely massive nerd. So working within a space where it was a crossover between gaming and music and esports and all of this coming together, it seemed like a bit of a too good to be true situation, especially with the opportunity to move out here to Berlin. So from there I started working on daily playlists back in 2019 with the original founder, but also working across the host of projects which you mentioned there. And what is it, 2023 now? And sort of now only working on daily playlists. But it was along the way picked up a whole host of experiences working across different technologies, working with different types of music campaigns, looking at it from like the tech angle, but also still looking at it from the independent artist angle, the label angle, and really keeping the pulse on what is going on within the music industry. So getting, for me, I guess the perfect like 360 view of my little space, I'd say.
Oh, that's amazing. And you know, that's what so many of our listeners, the space they are in, that independent music space, but, you know, combined with the business and technology aspects as well. So jumping into daily playlists as well, which is one of the reasons why I reached out to you. It's one of the few playlist companies we recommend at the Label Machine. It's very popular. You guys do a great job over there. Can you give us a quick rundown of what daily playlists is at its essence, and a rundown of what your main activities are there?
So in its core essence, daily playlists is a very simple and easy to use playlist submission platform. We really automate the process, so artists can go through a flow of entering the song, just searching for it, connecting to the platform via their Spotify login, and then being able to select from over 18,000 playlists to submit to, or over 400 premium curators, which I can get into a bit later. For the curation side of things, we again really pride ourselves in simplifying and automating the processes where the curators can organize, can filter through submissions, and can easily find the right music for their playlist, while also having a platform which allows them to grow and monetize their brands and profiles.
So how does because I believe if you've got a free account, you can get 20 credits, and is that essentially 20 submissions? Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's very much like a one-to-one value.
Okay, so I've submitted my music. So many people love daily playlists because you can submit to 20 playlists for free. What's the how does the business model work? Like, how does the company sort of make money if there's no financial movement around it?
So we do have two different monetization layers. So one of these is our Artist Pro layer, which is a subscription plan, which you can get for $14.99 per month or $150 per year, which basically gives you tools which allow you to make the most of daily playlists, really expand on your experience on the site. So we can get into the individual products on a deeper level in a bit, but we have a tool which automatically submits to playlists for you, which we have an algorithm which we built, which can basically match your submission to the playlists based on the playlist like quality. We also have the ability to add pre-saves to what we call the gate system, which means that if you have a playlist or if you want to create a contest, you can then have the terms and conditions of the entry or submission to being pre-saving a release. And then also we have a number of other features which include like our trending list, our track explorer, and very community-based engagement. It's because we have a very, very active community which is super open. But then on the other side, we have the premium layer for curators, in which we have a very heavily vetted marketplace of curators who have got proven engagement, genuine quality to their curation, and their branding especially is what we look at, and just are very much established within the space. So for $2 per submission, you can submit to these curators, and we split that 60-40 in the curator's favor per submission that they review.
Gotcha. So can people just submit any time to those premium playlists, or do you have to be on the membership model for that to work?
So anyone can buy. So we have two different credit types. We have the standard credits, which are the ones that you get every week, the 20 that refresh on a Monday. And then we also have the premium credits, which you can purchase. I think for 20, it is $39.99, and for 10, it's $19.99. And then you can freely spend those premium credits to the premium curators. So rather than submitting to an individual playlist, you submit to a curator who then evaluates and gives you feedback on your submission. And if it's a fit for their profile, they'll select which playlist and position they want to add you to. Whereas I guess the difference from that to the standard submissions is that on the standard side, you submit directly to a playlist. as a curator.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So are you seeing then a trend of when you talk about a curator,
Mhm.
is a curator like someone who manages a bunch of playlists essentially?
In this case, yeah. So curators, the world of music curation is huge. You have channels such as like Colors,
Mhm.
Circle, and those massive, like even like Boiler Room, right there, like music curation in a sense.
Yeah.
But then you have, in our essence, you're working with the playlisters who have assets, which are the playlists, which they've spent a lot of time mastering the growth, mastering the curation aspect, their branding. Um, and yeah, so that's how when I refer to curators, in this case I'm talking about like the playlisters. So yeah.
Gotcha. And when you were saying as well, you're submitting to the curators the premium, and they would review it and see which playlist they would add it to. Are you getting is the artist that's submitting or the label submitting getting actual feedback from like, like I guess the quality of the song or the style, or are they getting that kind of constructive feedback, or is it more just, yeah, we think we can work with it, or no we can't? What sort of depth does it go to?
So in the current setup, if a curator accepts a song, they don't necessarily have to leave a comment. However, if they're going to decline a submission, they then have to leave a comment of about 50 words. No, less than 50 words, sorry, about but they have to leave something that's extremely constructive and that's genuine. If a curator, for example, doesn't put the effort into the feedback, for us, that's a red flag, and that would be a mark against them. If we're putting them in this premium category, the feedback also has to be premium, and it also has to be valuable for the artist.
Gotcha. So it's sort of is a little bit like, I think the original company to do it was Submit Hub, wasn't it? Where you sort of
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're sort of adding that element in there. Do a bit sideways, but do you think that, is it like taxi drivers who sort of sign up to Uber and Lyft? Do these curators sign up to all the different platforms and Submit Hub and kind of review from everywhere, or do you know if they stick with one platform, and if they do stick with that one platform, yeah, is there an incentive to do that?
So the majority do curate across multiple platforms, I don't think anyone within the space necessarily has like exclusivity
Mm.
on specific curators. For them, the submissions is definitely their main form of business. We're seeing more and more curators who are shifting from hobbyist to part-time and then part-time to full-time through these various submission platforms and paying them out. I think for the curators, it's all about which platforms provide the most value for in terms of like quality of submission, in terms of which platforms can save me the most time, which are the easiest to use, and which are monetized in the most fair way for both artists and curators. So yeah, they definitely use a plethora of platforms and probably their own networks, which they're probably not meant to let anyone know about, but they definitely do.
I have her. We've got a playlister who's a Label Machine member, and he was sort of giving us the lowdown one day, saying, "Yeah, there's networks within networks within networks," and like it sounded crazy. Yeah, very interesting world. And how does it work with? Because I can see now. I don't know if this is new. Since I looked at the platform, you've got to connect with Spotify. Button now on your website. So how does Spotify feel about the kind of the playlisting side of thing, and do they work with you, or do they just sort of like let you do your own thing? Like, yeah, I guess do you have a line of communication with them, or are you more left to run independently?
No, so we have to be validated by Spotify through using their technology at least once a year, where we have to submit a whole case to them on why we should, or like how we use their API, like what are the exact calls that we're making, how many calls are we making, and why are we doing it? And then we have to go through an approval process with them. So we have a direct line. We have a guy that we talk to every time who walks us through the process and make sure that we're aligned with Spotify and making sure that we're representing their technology in the correct ways and ways that they want to back. So yeah.
So, and can we talk about the community, because you said you're the thriving community, and when I clicked on the community tab, it said connect with Spotify, brought up the connect with Spotify kind of link again. Yeah, what does the community look like? Can you sort of describe it for someone that hasn't joined yet?
Yeah, so our community, one thing, so we have a very active community with regards to submissions. We've had over 250,000 artists in the past 12 months use the platform. We've
Wow.
placed over like 3.3 million songs into playlists at this point. And we really wanted to capitalize on this movement that we saw and activity we saw just on the playlist submissions. Through myself talking over that. So I do the customer service every morning or throughout the day where, all the emails come in and I'm always the one who's doing it. So I think it's important for especially myself to be talking to the community, understanding exactly their wants and needs and what's working, what's not. So we saw this opportunity to create the community tab. So this is basically like interactions from one of our users to another one of our users. We do this across a few different tools. So we have the playlist trading tool, which is a good example of these networks within networks within networks of curators. So this allows curators to basically swap track placements with other curators. So say you've got a playlist that has 1,000 followers that's in the rock genre, and I have a playlist that has 1,000 followers in the rock genre. We could then say, hey, I'm pushing this track, you're pushing this track, let's swap. So your track's now on my playlist and my track is then on your playlist. So we have a system that automates all of that, allows for communication. We then also have the Track Explorer, which basically allows the community to give feedback on your releases. So if you're an Artist Pro member, so the subscription plan that I was discussing earlier, part of one of the perks of that is that your music will get placed on the Track Explorer. And then here, the rest of the community can basically they have to listen through the whole song. And then when they've listened through the whole song, they can give you some feedback on, across the number of different
Did they like
categories.
it? Was it punchy?
Yeah, exactly. Like punchy, like violent, like all of all of that. And so from there, yeah, they can give you some nice feedback, which I'd say 90% of the time comes from a very genuine place. And then in return, the community gets rewarded with like a submission credit that they can go spend to submit to another curator.
Interesting. Oh, that's really cool. So I guess the idea with the swaps as well is it allows curators the ability to, well, I mean, I guess if my song's only on one playlist and then he does a swap with somebody else, I'm now on two playlists. So and essentially if both of them have got 10,000 followers, I'm doubling my reach. I guess that's the idea behind it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's making the most of like the real estate that you're building. So usually these playlist trade networks are all over emails where one guy will be looking after a whole network of playlists and he'll email another curator who's looking after a whole network of playlists and be like, these are my priority tracks for the week. If you can place them in any of your playlists, please let me know and I can place your music in our playlist in return. So it's just a swap to, again, like as you were saying, to really expand on the reach, but making the most of the time and I guess, yeah, making the most of the time and effort you've put into building out these playlists and growing the followers and engagement on them.
So I mean, everybody now, they know you want to get on playlists is the key to getting a good chunk of plays, especially if you're trying to break a new artist or you're trying to break a new single. And I guess the most cost-effective way is to get on playlists. Is this the future? Is this growing? Do you think it's flattened off and it's at maturity yet? Like, what's your opinion on that?
So we see that personally, I believe, and as a company, we believe in the power of curation, especially in the world of saturation, right? So I saw that you interviewed Dorian, and he was discussing about this, the 100,000 a day, 100,000 songs a day being uploaded to Spotify. What role of the curator, the role of the curator in this is he or she or they act as basically a window into a specific culture, into a specific community where they built this like list of music which has engagement from people who really respect it. So, for example, if I, again, using the example of if I had this post-punk playlist that
Mm.
had like 10,000 followers on and driving good amount of streams, I, as a curator, can act as like a window against like the saturation of like all the other post-punk tracks that are being released, because I can then make my selection, which I know I've got like an audience for. So we're really trying to take the approach of looking after the curator, because looking after the curator in turn then sort of counteracts the saturation for the artist and helps them find these specific audiences. So I think as we go on and on and on, the role of the curator is only going to grow in terms of importance. And yeah.
It's kind of like they sort of are being a bit like a gatekeeper, like a record label, what used to be a
100%.
gatekeeper,
Yeah.
but it's a bit more pay for play if you've got more music, maybe more like the radio days, but it's a bit more formalized. Yeah, well, because you're not really paying to, you're not paying to get plays, are you? You're getting paid to get your music potentially reviewed and then potentially put on playlist. So you still need to have great music, I guess. You can't just pay to get plays, can you? With the system you
No.
guys have built. Is that right?
Exactly. So I think this, yeah, exactly. And any platform which is saying, hey, you give us $50 and you're going to get this package which guarantees between X amount of streams and X amount of streams, that's a massive red flag. Like it doesn't work like that. But yeah, it is paying for the feedback to get yourself in front of the person for them to then decide whether they want to put you in a list that suits their brand and their curation style.
Yeah. So what strategy would you say a smaller indie label looking to use your platform would use in contrast to an individual artist using the platform? Is there any difference at all?
Yeah, so I would say, especially our platform is very catered towards this. One, because of the amount of submissions that you do get on the standard level, so the free tier. As I quoted earlier, like 18,000 active playlists on daily playlists. So there's a whole plethora of playlists which, whether you're an independent artist or indie label, you need to listen through the playlist. You need to do your research before committing to the submission. That's always going to be the best way to get the best results. But also with this automated tool that we have, where we're like automatically submitting 2 playlists for you, is really built towards both independent artists, but also with catalogs. It really suits catalogs well, because we don't limit the amount of campaigns you can have on this tool. The way that we limit it is like once you hit a number of successful submissions, then your quota for the month is done. So if you have like a catalog and you're just passively pushing it, you can then just use our tool, our smart submission tool, to basically run in the background the benefits for an independent label using our smart submission tool as it passively submits to the playlists and curators. So really incorporating that while actively also pushing it is something that's just going on in the background. You constantly getting the benefits of it, and also just allows you to submit multiple campaigns at once without having to go through and doing the manual work, and really, really does save you some time.
Gotcha. So as a label, I've got let's say I've got a couple of tracks coming out every month, as well as and I've got like a back catalog of the last 6 months. So I still want to be actively promoting. So what's that like? What's that 2 times? So I've got about a dozen tracks. What you're saying is if I do the $14.95 a month, I can just go in there and say, just keep submitting these tracks just use the algorithm and just tell me which ones to go to.
Yeah, so we do the submissions for them as well. So we will identify, we have the algorithm will run, and then we will identify which playlist we want to submit this particular track to. So let's say you have like 10 tracks active, so as we call them, campaigns active on the smart submission tool. Yeah, we'll then analyze each one of those tracks and submit it until you reach the quota of successful submissions for that month, and then that quota will reset the month after. So it's really, yeah, just we built it to really simplify the process, as we knew a lot of the key indicators for high quality curation. And also just to save time, for these like independent labels, even artists, like we've seen, the examples of like Kate Bush and Metallica with their catalog like getting a massive boost. It can also work like that for artists, like more and more so these days that catalog is seeing a bigger boost rather than like new releases. So it's really to be used as part of your campaign, not the sole purpose of a campaign, but to really just keep things ticking over, to keep bringing value to these songs and to really keep bringing opportunities to finding these new fans.
Yeah. So when you're saying that, just to go back on that, you're saying if you've got a smart campaign running, it has a quota. What's the quota?
Okay, yeah. So a quota, it starts off at 10 placements per month. So it's 10 successful submissions per month.
Yep.
And then from there you can purchase add-ons to extend this quota. So you can basically control the size of the quota to suit your needs. So yeah.
Oh, gotcha. So basically for $40.95, you can be if you've got good music, in theory, you're getting 10 successful submissions a month. Is that
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
You just have that running, and then you can up that if you want to. And
Exactly.
I guess the idea is to try and get your 10 successful submissions on the biggest playlist possible.
Yeah, on the most, biggest doesn't always equate to the best, but I'd say is to get the idea is to get those 10 successful submissions to be on playlists which have genuine value, that the tight is curated. They don't have too many tracks. They don't have a big span of genres. It's something we really try and avoid. The playlists which encourage like specific and active listening. That's what we're trying to do with this smart submission tool, but also, as I said, just so it's on in the background and you can really use it with the other aspects of our site to make the most of your campaigns.
Yeah. And the submissions, what I wanted to ask was, have you got any tips or tricks for making sure that you get on and you're right, not necessarily the biggest, but the best playlists? Like, is there anything that, I'm a label with a back catalog, I can do to get the best value out of, getting to the best playlists?
Yeah, 100%. So I think the advice is always like constant here. It doesn't really change too much because one, you can analyze playlists these days really easily using tools such as like, is it a good playlist, is one that I use a lot myself. Or Chartmetric if you have one of those plans. Also, I'd always advise to go with playlists that you've listened through and you've listened through very honestly is the way to say it, like whether the song is a genuine fit. Just because it's the same genre or listed as the same genre doesn't mean necessarily it's going to be a match, because how many subgenres can come under that, how different people interpret music is, people don't really hear the music the same. So always listen through the list and be honest with yourself. Would you put it on if you were the curator, not from just like a marketing standpoint, but from a curation standpoint? Also just make sure the list that you're submitting to, they don't have too many tracks in. Look at when they were last updated, like what was the last submission they accepted or the last track that they added on. Also playlists with better branding obviously is a bit superficial, but it usually means the curator is a bit more proud of their playlist and they want to really make them stand out and spend that extra bit of time. And also looking at like social media activity of the curator and just making sure that like if they do have social media, they're also got good quality on there, that they've got a good amount of engagement. I think those are like the mainstays of when doing a submission campaign, like on any platform, what you should be considering before committing to making the submission.
Yeah. And what would you say is you mentioned don't go to a too big of a playlist. Well, like what would you say is a number of tracks on a playlist that's probably getting to the excessive point?
So there's a kind of superficial like ratio that we use, especially on our evaluating our premium curator applications, is that if say it's 1,000 followers, we look for around 135 tracks. The average is around 2% listener to follower ratio. So the smaller the amount of followers to the bigger the track list, above that, you're going to really be diminishing the chances of getting even like that 2 to 5%. Even from there, with these playlists, like, always try and encourage active listening. So obviously, one thing that playlisting has brought has been this passive listening. Just stick it on in the background. You might listen to a song once because it's just on a playlist and you're not really listening to it. It's in background music. So those with a kind of more sensible sized track list, and more within context, I would say just encourages or has a better chance of having active listeners within the followers.
Gotcha. And you mentioned as well a tool that you use pretty regularly to check out a good playlist. What was it called? Good Playlist?
Is it a good playlist? Is it a good playlist.com?
Is it a good playlist.com? Just all one word?
All one word, yeah.
What do you do? Just put the playlist in and it just says...
You literally put the link in and they give you metrics such as the amount of followers, how the followers have accrued over time, how many appeared on sections that the playlist contributes on to. So for example, that would be a playlist actually ranks towards within all the playlists that artist has been put on. So I think the top 40 playlists get ranked on that appeared on section. So that just basically means discovered on. I think it used to be called discovered on even.
Gotcha.
But now it's called appeared on. So yeah, they just give you some solid indicators whether the playlist is going to be worth your time or not.
Gotcha. So putting on your experience hat in the music industry, you have been given $500 to spend on a promotion for a lo-fi pop single release coming up on October the 1st, 2023, which is a couple of months from today. So you've got 2 months. It's the artist's third release. They've got 2,000 monthly streams, monthly streams on Spotify. They've got about 3,000 followers across YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Where, in your opinion, should the label that's releasing it spend that money to promote that upcoming independent single?
So obviously the first method that I'm going to mention is playlisting.
Yeah.
And so with this, I would say using a platform such as ours, we can really bring a lot of value to, again, getting yourselves on these, or potentially getting yourself on these really well and tightly curated playlists, which can definitely help convert like a listener to a fan, because these playlists have been curated very well. Help boost up the streams, obviously, and get into the Spotify algorithm, favored in the Spotify algorithm and the recommendation side of things. Traditionally as well, I think like using tools such as, the social ads, is always solid, depending on budget and also expectations, whether you're trying to hit your audiences who have engaged on all these different like platforms, or depending on the marketing setup for the retargeting, or if it is just trying to put your name out there for like a week or two with that small of a budget. There's an amazing platform called Symphony, which I've used in the past, which really provides robust analytics and simplifies the ad creation process based on your wants and needs. Like, they even have a tool which they call Forever Saves, which if basically a fan just needs to click save once, and then every release ever from that point onwards will be saved automatically into the fans library. So I'd definitely spend some money with those guys. What's the
name of that company? Can you
Symphony?
Symphony, is it just Google symphony.com?
Symphony.to, I think, off the top of my head. Oh no, I've got the link. I'm going to put the link in the chat. Symphonos. Is there a chat? There you go.
Gotcha. SYMPHONYOS.co. So if you are listening, pause, quickly put that into your notes and check it out later. Recommendation. And when you do some paid ads, do some playlisting. Any other places you'd recommend putting money these days in 2023?
Yeah, honestly, I think merch and really trying to make the most of your fan base. By making the most of your fan base, it's all about these days. It's hard to cut through the clutter, right? It's very saturated market. I wouldn't put all your budget into just trying to get out there. I think that it's extremely important to work the budget internally to your current fan base, and that's like through merch, whether that's like you can't get like a vinyl release for that much, but you could,
Mm.
whether it's like t-shirts, hoodies, CDs, whatever it can be, really investing into that as well, and working the channels for like the director fan.
Mm.
Getting those super fans involved, whether it's also like creating a Discord, investing into a contest, which can really boost the engagement from your fans, and really trying to work that community that you do have already.
Mm.
I think is extremely important to do more and more so these days. So yeah, there's again like tools like Amplify. We just did a partnership with Amplify.
Yeah, they're
Um,
awesome.
yeah, they're really great guys over there, really cool tech. Layla, I'm a massive fan as well. Their drop like technology for like merch and stuff is really great for utilizing your current communities. And also Koji, as like a link in bio service is pretty crazy in the way it's built out and the UI UX of it all. So investing for stuff, obviously investing into merch, yeah, especially working with smaller budgets, I
Mm.
would definitely say is worthwhile. It's one of the things you probably have the best chance of getting a genuine revenue return on, right?
Mm.
Compared to, I think a lot of people make a mistake of expecting to go into playlisting with a return on investment,
Mm. If I
which is,
spend $200 on Spotify playlisting, I'll get that back in stream somehow, which is
yeah,
an
that's always
absolute
the
fantasy.
expectation. Yeah, exactly. It's always the expectation, and it's always the most common, I guess, gripe within the industry is that you spend a lot, but you get streams, but you don't know really what to do with it at that point, and you don't get that obviously return from the royalties. So yeah, I mean, one thing I'd always say with like playlisting is always try and like convert the data into something more actionable that you do get from that, looking at where the listeners are coming from, looking at how like these new fans are engaging from on your Spotify for Artists profile, also on like the distributor profiles, and really trying to look at that data to see if
So
you can convert to like some of those fans into, or at least retarget some of those fans to become, or listeners to become fans, right?
So yeah, that leads perfectly on to my next question, which was, in your opinion, how do you capitalize on Spotify plays? You got a user, they've now hit 30,000 monthly listeners. Great. Now what? What would you talked about earlier about building a community of super fans. What, in your opinion, is the best way of, and on a practical level, what specifically should somebody do to get those streams and those people listening into a community?
Well, I think it's one notoriously hard, obviously, with Spotify, to translate from one platform to another.
Mm.
However, looking at the Spotify for Artists data, you can really get some good insights into where these streams are coming from, where your fans are like seeming to be growing. It's really good to get at least indicators on this, because then it's how you translate it into stuff like, okay, maybe I see that in XYZ like location that I'm getting more streams, and they've been increasing over time, so therefore I'm going to do some more targeted ads over there and see if I can like maybe get their attention and bring them in to your
Gotcha.
page.
So as
Yeah,
a way, if you're going to be like, and as you rightly said, if on that 500, let's say you spend $150 on social ads, by looking at the data, you'll be able to say, well, rather than just picking North America, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand as the countries, instead what you're saying is, well, no, we're in America. Which cities is it growing? Okay, great. It's in LA, Houston, and New York. Right, I'm just going to target those cities. Likewise, it's in Brighton and, I don't know, Liverpool, and then you're going to get a better bang for your buck. Is that sort of what you're meaning?
yeah. If you're looking at purely conversions from like these listeners, I think that's 100% one of the correct methods to do so. It's obviously there's risk to it because it's so specific,
Mm.
the purpose of that campaign is to target those people who are listening in those specific locations, right?
Mm.
Whereas so it's more retargeting, So as long as you understand the actual the goals of the campaign, rather than, you know, if you were doing, let's say, countrywide ones, that's more like an encatchment to get people's attention. Whereas the ones where it's like very specific into these locations is again about like there's evidence to suggest that this will work and this will convert better. So as long as you know the setup and you understand the setup, I think that's definitely the way to approach it.
And just going back as well to, you know, this fantasy campaign of $500, what just on timing wise as well, like when do you recommend to submit the, you know, even using your platform? Do you still do it 2 or 3 weeks beforehand? Should you be submitting the music? Like, does your platform accept like SoundCloud or Dropbox links, or do you say start on the day the music comes out? Like, what can you talk through some of the timings?
Yeah, so up until recently, we only supported live links on Spotify. So a live link is this link that is actually on the platform, not like a pre-release or anything. As our whole submission flow is based on submitting that Spotify link. So when a curator is actually listening to your submission, we've just got the Spotify widget there for them to listen to. But if you're part of our Artist Pro plan, we allow for pre-saves. So you can utilize Daily Playlist for running a contest. We have a contest tool, so you can run a contest to pre-save with your community. Let's say you're giving away one of these new hoodies that you just spent a bit of your $500 budget on. You can then use that to help drive pre-saves and engagement from the community. But then day of release and just keep going. You know, there's no set rules on you have to do it on day of release to get the biggest impact anymore. You know, obviously it's very nice and satisfying to get that day one impact drop where the streams go like massively up. But I think you can probably agree with me, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Like, campaigns are more and more drawn out these days. It's not like that first week where it's like go, 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 go. Things take time, you know, you're still getting new like if you're running like a PR campaign at the same time, still getting these like articles coming in like a few weeks later. You could still be running these playlisting campaigns as it goes on. And then you can still be utilizing your community as that goes on. You know, I don't think it's as big of a like the day one released impact day as it once was. Anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting that I shy away from being too like you can just spread things out and do when you want, because I've found that it does lend people to pick up bad habits and basically not start anything until release day, and then they realize, oh, you know, there are still things like if you do want to get interviews or blog coverage or publication coverage, they do need to know before the release date, because it's a filtering method that they know if someone's organized and they're sending stuff out, the music quality is going to be good, and that's the kind of the system that runs. But I do agree on the playlisting side of things. And that also don't just focus on the first day and week. You should be going, what am I doing for the next month? As I understand it though, Spotify, that the first 4 weeks after a release though, they are analyzing activity. So if you do want to have, you know, and they're monitoring online activity and mentions of the music and artist and social media, it is that month following the release day that you want to have lots of activity happening. So I do agree, like, don't make it all about the release day and then forget about it. Be doing something on the release day, but then to be doing something every week for the whole month. I think that's how you're going to get the best value out of a release.
Yeah, I think especially that definitely translates to playlisting, because always another bit of advice I'd give is like, don't use your playlisting budget in one go. You need to learn what works, what doesn't, like the way you listen to your music and the way you hear your music is going to be different to someone else, and it's going to be different to the next person. You know, whether it's just like specific inflections in like the vocals, or whether it's just like certain tones that you think translate to this emotion, or someone else thinks it translates to another emotion. This is all things that curators consider. So I would always say, like, break down your playlisting budget over like the course of like a few weeks, because then you can like learn and you can really adapt your campaigns and see where it's working and where it's not, and learn as well about yourself and your music and how it's perceived, because that is I guess it's a kind of like a reality in one way. which can be extremely valuable for not just that release, but later down the line, and how you're doing your planning and putting together your release schedules, and selecting which tracks you want to go into specific projects. So yeah, that can be I think it can be a really valuable experience taking in how these campaigns perform.
Yeah, my rule of thumb at the moment is break your budget up over a month. And this is even if you're spending a budget on social ads or playlisting, and do in the first week, like front load in the first week. So let's say for argument's sake, you've got $1,000, do 500 in the first week, and then the second, third, and fourth, spread the second 500 out over those 3 weeks. So you've got something happening every week, but you're still front loading stuff at the start of it to kind of get the ball rolling.
Would you not? Is this like, for example, like the way I've always run it for like when I've been looking after like artists on my own projects, is always spend that first bit, I guess, if I'm starting with a fresh slate anyway, testing rather than front loading, like always feeding bits in and testing and seeing what works, and then doubling down, like cutting off the other ones and really focusing on the one channel that works and really doubling down on that. That's how I've done it. So I'm really interested to hear about.
No, you are right. I'm assuming in my release schedule, you've done your testing up until that point. So because if we're doing, especially with social ads, there is that testing of like $2 or $3 a day for a like 10 days to 2 weeks, see what's working. And then, but then that's what I mean. And then when it comes to release day, when you go right now, where we're spending our money, front load it on release day, and then following the month. But yeah, that's assuming that you've actually figured out where you're going to be spending your money. Cool. So I know that you did have you are working on some new developments over there. Is there anything you can like share with us today that we can possibly look forward to?
So in terms of like brand new products and features, we've actually been spending the past like 6 months, really with our foot on the pedal. With that, we had the new premium submissions come in, which took up the first bit of the year, and really releasing them, refining, like iterating, testing, measuring, all that good product cycle strategy. Then we moved across to looking at the subscription plan that we do have, and we really refactored it all, looked at the products, looked at the value, and really tried to sit down and analyze how can we bring that extra value to our community through this plan. So now we're spending a bit more time refining the platform, but as we've been so like foot on the pedal all year, and just taking a step back to really try and make sure everything is working to the best of its ability. Moving forward, we definitely have plans with regards to we've built, I guess we've broken down our products, like identifying which products like work best for specifically curators, because we believe that curators want to save time and they want to have the best music, they want to make money as well, and they want to grow their brands. So for us, the way that we're looking at future products is looking at where do they fit into these like 4 categories. How can we help the curators build the best brands, build the best playlists, which in turn will then have a positive impact for those artists who again onto those playlists. So at the moment, we're very much looking at like some quality of life features for curators. We've got like premium playlist trading coming out. We're also looking at a few features which can bring transparency to campaigns, meaning that artists will be able to see, or at least have indicators on potential impact, and maybe on how curators are growing their playlists or growing their brands, and seeing what we can, I guess, share from the curator side to the artist side, so they know where their credits are best spent. And and also we're looking at there is one other feature that we do have on the platform that we are looking to build out very soon, even more, which is the label submission tool, which is basically allowing artists to submit to labels who are listed on the platform, but also labels that have custom parameters around which artists can submit based on Spotify metrics for now. So let's say a label say, hey, I'm looking for an artist based in the UK that has between 2,000 and 5,000 monthly listeners. They'll be able to then basically list that ad I'll put that listing live on daily playlists, and then artists who fit that category will be able to submit to these labels.
Sort of like an A&R tool in a way.
Yeah, exactly. An A&R tool.
Oh,
Give them
nice.
flexibility and like also share some other metrics with them. So yeah.
So, and keeping on the topic of labels and playlistings, you know, you say you're looking after curators. Labels are essentially curators. Would you recommend, you know, in your personal opinion, a label becoming a curator and investing some time into building up a playlist or you know, a group of playlists, and then, you know, joining daily playlists as a curator and going through that? Would you recommend that in today's climate?
100%. I definitely would recommend it, especially on the independent side. Having is one a way for you to build like an audience that you know you're going to get engagement from, and you can control where this audience is coming from. Because I think personally it's easier to build playlists than it is to like and to push playlists through marketing techniques like such as, again, social ads. I've mentioned it a few times, but to build audiences through social ads and engagement through social ads for playlists is quite easy compared for an individual artist. You know, there's a lot more scope for people to be interested in to stream the playlist because it's covering a span of different artists within a specific genre. So that's one thing I'd say is a massive advantage for labels, is that you can basically have at least a pool of streams that you can control and at least have influence on where these streams are coming from. And then a second one I would say is obviously the monetary aspect of it. It's very, if you have the time, it's a very time consuming thing reviewing submissions. However, if you do have the time for it and you do have a playlist that is a good enough quality, you can make a nice amount of money, especially if you're working with these smaller budgets. That can make a difference. You know, we have some curators on our platform making like close to like $1,000 just from us a month, right? So never mind if they're also on the likes of Submit Hub and, you know, there's Groover, you know, they could be making like a considerable amount. Like, we already have full-time curators on our platform who it's their full-time jobs to do this, and they make a full-time salary off just their playlists and also their curation brands. They sell merchandise as well, and most, like, we already have a whole host of labels who all also have these curation profiles like Blanco, Wide Negro, The Acid Mine, Acidia, Stereo Fox. We've got Airway Music TV. We got plenty of these. The Lab Recording, another one that just come to mind. But yeah, we have a load of these curators who are already labels.
So it's definitely, I mean, it's making me take an ad to something to add into our program as a revenue stream that you should look at doing alongside merch, is build a playlist, because if you spend the time on it, I think you're right. Not only can it essentially pay for itself, if you can get to $1,000 a month, that's another substantial revenue stream, but also, like you said, it gives an opportunity to, you know, sell merch off the back of it. Just, and so staying on this topic as well, if you know, if so someone's listening and they're a label and they're like, great, I'll go and do that and I'll join. You were talking about if you're doing social ads or paid ads to promote, to build an audience around that. What would be your recommendations to, hey, how do I build my playlist now? How do I get more playlisters on it? What kind of, I guess, how do you market a playlist in your opinion?
So the way to market it, so there's a few different in the social ads, I think, your ads and spread on your playlists. Don't make the spread too wide. I personally run, or have, like, I don't run it anymore, but I ran an indie playlist that had like 10,000 followers, basically growing primarily from SEO on Spotify and social ads. But this was like indie music, but across the genres of like indie pop, indie rock, like, you know, very tightly grouped, but also makes a good listening altogether. So when you're building this playlist, make sure it's cohesive and that it does make sense with all the tracks together, because then the content you make for this needs to then represent what's on the playlist and to get the attention of the person who's watching the ad and clicking through to the playlist. You know, it's all about expectations. So yeah, tight curation, good branding, and then just making sure you're not overfilling the track list, making sure, because that would be more beneficial for you as a label to have active, as I mentioned, active listeners over passive listeners. Also, I would say have a good mix of artists, like well-known artists versus up-and-coming artists versus your own roster artists. And yeah, I think they're the main ways that I'd say, or the main pillars before even like starting a campaign to think about.
I mean, yeah, having good branding and having good curation, I guess, is just their cornerstone of a good label. But it is interesting as well that in building a playlist as a label, in a funny way, you can kind of not sign anybody, but represent anybody out there. So if you're smaller and you get a good following, it's almost a bit of a way you could reach out to some of those mid-level artists that are maybe a little bit above your current artists to maybe collab and say, hey, we're supporting on the playlist. Do you want to, let us know when your next single's coming out. We'll chuck it straight in our playlist. We've got no problem with that. Here's an email. And I guess it would help open doors and dialogue in the industry for that.
100%. Like there's a curator on our platform who's got, I think on his top playlist, close to 300,000 followers. And I know for him personally, that's opened a door to make a label because of his brand that he's building on Spotify. And now he's starting to do releases where he's putting the songs into the playlist. And, he knows how many streams he is getting per week, per month on these tracks. So he can even go to artists and be like, hey, I know that my playlist drive this. If you sign to my label, we can do all the extra marketing and stuff, but we've already got a groundwork of X streams per month here. And it's just about now, as we've mentioned before, like building the community and finding those other way to push the music. But it's a very good, I believe it's an extremely solid starting ground for a label or for a label to bring in for an extra revenue source. Not just even because of the revenue, as I mentioned, for the way that even like on the, again, I keep on using the word social ads. I feel like it's a bit of a hack, but like if you're building these ads in the correct way, you then have retargeting for your other releases, right? Because you're building your audience for this playlist, which is applicable to your roster, and who's engaging in that. So you can then use those ad groups for retargeting and then really building like a cohesive marketing strategy.
Do you think, now this might be a controversial question or answer, but would it be possible or do you think this can happen or has happened, where I could say, oh, hey, I come across a playlist, I know some guy's running it as a maybe a professional hobby, it's making a little bit of money, it's exactly the audience that our label releases on, approaching them and going, hey, can my label hire you to work for us as our Spotify playlister? I'll pay you $1,000 a month. And as a throwback, then all our music also goes on your playlist. Do you think that could happen? Or do you know if it does happen?
Yeah, it does. Like 100%. I know there's deals going on between labels and curators who the curators actually earn a specific percentage of royalties for the whole catalog because they guarantee that they're going to get the placement on their playlists. So now, even if a song isn't on the playlist, they'll still get a percentage of the royalties that are coming in for that particular release. So this is like a whole underground. This is also what I think playlisting can sometimes feel a bit. There's a lot of warning signs from people, but there is also a whole ecosystem that's built like around it because it's such a core discovery tool today. But yeah, all these types of deals are going on. So yeah,
behind closed doors.
Behind closed doors, yeah.
All
it's
right.
interesting, it's super interesting, like being able to learn about it and to obviously be so active within the communities and learning about it from the people who are doing these deals or being offered these deals. Like all of them are obviously legal and legitimate, but it's crazy. You just never until you start thinking about it, you never consider these things are even going on or see, to be fair, the potential or the importance of playlisting. I mean, there's over specifically these playlists, it's the same with like uploading songs to Spotify. There's over 4 billion playlists on Spotify right now. So
4 billion playlists.
4 billion playlists. Obviously, that's taking into account all the editorials, all the personal, private playlists. The playlist probably with no songs on. That's taken into account to all the playlists like ever made. But having a playlist that is driving streams and driving engagement it's just one way to at least have something in your control on Spotify to counteract the saturation. You know, it works for artists having to counteract the saturation because you can get on these, you have the opportunity to get on these lists. But if you're a curator yourself, you control the list. You control this little community or these insights into your music taste. Or if you're wanting to do it from like an educational standpoint, doing it about teaching them about I don't know, a history of a specific genre from like old releases to new releases, or if you're a new release playlist, you know, people trust in your curation taste because they know each week you're going to fill that playlist up with complete bangers that they're going to love. Being the curator gives you the control of that, and like how much you can like push that through like growing on like ads, or so therefore getting more streams in, more followers, or the way that you brand it and building out these like yeah, you know, these brands that have now gone from Spotify to Instagram, and they're now also like monetizing because they got merchandise and they maybe doing releases. I think the world of curation is extremely exciting, and it's something that hasn't really been touched upon because it like the way that Spotify has brought it to the public and made it a lot more accessible. But I think there's a lot more from the world to come to legitimize it and opportunity wise, especially in saturation.
Yeah, it's like the what happened about 10 years ago with YouTube, like UKF, that sound, all those guys, Trap Nation. It's sort of moved into the playlisting world. I have a feeling in 10 years there'll be all the stories will come out about what was going on behind. Someone will write a book about it and everyone will go, oh my God, I had no idea all that was happening.
There's some dark sides to it, like in terms of curators versus curators, where I know there's like fake takedowns and all of this, like complete like rivalries from one brand to another. Yeah, there's a big soap opera underneath the hood. But yeah.
Well, I've just got one more question because I think it's quite relative, and I know it's something that's you know, in your space as well, or you know, it's something you're interested in. How do you think AI like ChatGPT are going to change things for the music industry? And let's stay away from production side. Let's say, how do you think it's going to change for the promoting and marketing of music for artists?
I think for the promoting and marketing in music, I think there's going to be a massive, I think there's going to be a big positive effect in that artist money is probably going to be spent more accurately. You know, there's going to be less errors being made, and there's going to be less of a learning curve. Obviously, that means then the technology is accessible, so everyone's going to be sort of marketing in the same way. So that's it feeds into that sort of saturation, and the accessibility, yeah, as I said, feeds into that saturation. I think it's going to be amazing for recommendations and music discovery as a whole. Like, I think it would be silly to be against that, because I'm all for it, if I'm being honest. I don't think it'll ever replace human curation. There's something that you can't replace with that. You know, the human's touch to especially music won't be able to be based on just your listening history, right? It is a lot more insightful than that. So yeah, I think I'm trying to give like a very definitive, non-wishy-washy answer here.
It's hard. It's hard though, because it is so open. The possibilities are endless. So it's really hard to come up with individuals. But I agree. I think it's a really smart point you made about people won't waste so much money. I think, which is really important for independence. You know, you'll make less errors. I think that's a great way of looking at it. And I think regardless of whether everybody has access to that, that's just better for everybody. Like, no one wants
100%. I'm not a gatekeeper, right? I'm not for the one being like, no, I have like only I should have access to this because what X, Y, Z. But I think that's gonna, again, I completely agree with you. I think that's gonna the accessibility isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think more people being able to really experience releasing music in professional ways and learning about, because these techniques aren't even just applicable to releasing music, right? It's also very career driven or practice. It's going to become more and more practical as we get more and more digital on like how to actually put together these marketing campaigns or what they actually do, or tools to be able to push stuff. It's translatable across careers. So I think that's really positive. I think also on a content creation level, it's going to be great. Obviously there's the other side to it where it's going to be maybe, you know, you had the videos of, I don't know if you saw them, but of like Obama and Trump playing Overwatch together. And that was kind of funny. But there was also, I don't know, the one thing I know that a lot of curators, as our example, struggle with is content creation. And I think it's gonna be amazing for that. You know, you look at it's Mid-Journey, right? And like the AI art side of things, I know it's extremely controversial, but if you're looking just for like a really cool like playlist cover photo, why not? If you look that's harmless, as long as you're not going to go on and sell it as your own art. That's all cool. But so I think it's like the utility of it is it's only positive, really. It's extremely positive.
No, it's amazing. I mean, we're already using it to just write out people's 3 months content, you know, all their content for 3 months for online for just their evergreen stuff. So someone's always got something to post. You can spend a day and get 3 months worth of stuff, emojis, everything based on like, you know, your tone of voice, which is nobody, like, people don't mind posting everyday stuff, but you also know you need to be consistent, and you don't want to like, I haven't posted anything in a week. Knowing something's there and going out, I think is really cool. That's relative to your music. Well, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you again for your time. It was like so really, really insightful sharing, you know, the world of playlisting and your knowledge there as well. I know anyone who's listening is definitely going to get some value out of this, which is awesome. So is there anywhere, you know, is there anywhere people can find and follow you personally online, if they want to like kind of track your career, and where can people find daily playlists?
Sweet. Yeah, if you want to follow my career, I'd definitely say Instagram or LinkedIn. LinkedIn's probably a bit more professional than my Instagram. But either or is absolutely fine. H_Sotnick or Harry Sotnick on LinkedIn if you want to reach out. If you want to reach out to me personally, have any questions about daily playlists, the world of curation, even building playlists as like a label, you know, the examples we've gone over in this podcast, please feel free to reach out to harry@dailyplaylist.com. Would love to connect and share some knowledge and hopefully give you some pointers. And yeah, I'd say check out daily playlists for your playlisting campaigns, for really making the most of your catalog, keeping that ticking over, and connecting with some really high quality and passionate curators. So yeah, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome, Harry. Thank you.